Foundation, and towards the end of last year, we released something called EV Ready India Dashboard. This is a dashboard that collates publicly available information about electric vehicles ecosystem at large and presents it in a very user-friendly, consumable fashion. And we've been very blessed because we've received positive feedback from a variety of quarters. Most recently, from the Joint Parliamentary Committee report, wherein the dashboard was referred multiple times, and it was highly encouraged that it would be referred to from time to time by various stakeholders. Let me just give you a few quick pointers about what the dashboard itself contains. It contains information about sales, which is broken down by vehicle form factor. So two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, buses, so on and so forth. It has this information not only at India level, but also broken down by states. We also have projections as to how the vehicle sales will pick up. It also has information on policy initiatives that have been taken by various states and central governments so that it fosters peer learning and friendly competition. It also has information about investments, TCO computation, and so on and so forth. I'd highly encourage all of you to go ahead and check out evreadyindia.org, and we welcome any questions later on. Thank you.
Thanks, approved. Moving on to Sri Subhashish De from Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation.
Good afternoon. My name is Subhashish De, and I am one of the program directors in Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation. I manage Shakti's work on climate policy and climate finance. So Shakti is a regional climate foundation, and we had been fortunate enough to able to inform various departments and ministries at the national as well as at the subnational level in informing policy, discourse, and decision. Since today's discussion is heavily focused on mobility sector, I will reflect on one of the recent work which also got mentioned in the Modi-Biden declaration on climate technology and finance. This is regarding the bus procurement facilities which will be taken forward by various organizations within India, where Shakti and its partner had provided insights and information to design and develop the policy discourse which is going to move ahead as we speak. Thank you.
Now on to Sri C.S. Sharma from the Quality Council of India.
Very good afternoon to all. I am C.S. Sharma, working as Joint Director in Quality Council of India. Quality Council of India is an autonomous body under Ministry of Commerce where we operate various accreditation schemes, certification schemes related to products, process, systems, and persons. And recently there were two milestones which have been achieved by India, that India has become the 5th largest economy. At the same time, India has been ranked at 5th position as far as global quality accreditation infrastructure is concerned. So that is a moment of proud for all of us. In Quality Council of India, with the effective and efficient engagement of various stakeholders, we are operating conformity assessment programs, which leads to quality, health and safety, environment, sustainability, and all the aspects with respect to sustainable growth. And what we see today in terms of global context, that public-private partnership model is the key to attain the sustainable solutions. If you would like to attain speed, scale, quality, along with sustainability, we have to focus on effective and efficient engagement of stakeholders. So in Quality Council of India, we are working for various solutions, whether it's technological related solutions, for example, drones, cybersecurity, or whether agriculture related certain solutions. We are working on those effective engagement of stakeholders. And during this discussion, I will be happy to share more about those initiatives. Thank you.
If you could just take a 1 minute or less and then highlight one flagship initiative or action.
Good afternoon, everyone. So myself, Dr. Ambika Behel. I come from Central Road Research Institute. That's an institute which works under Ministry of Science and Technology. So in the morning when Shri Amitabh Kanji was saying that there are 8 hard-to-abate sectors when we talk about carbon emissions, So we are working on one of that sector. And today's session, as it's on climate financing on mobility, so we cannot have mobility with roads. So I come from road construction sector. We do research on various methodologies and technologies. By using, we can reduce the carbon emissions during road construction. So just to highlight that, just for you to connect that how much emissions we are generating. So if I give a number, to construct 1 kilometer, I generate the emissions which are equivalent to pollution created by 210 cars if they are running annually 24 into 7. So that is the huge amount of pollution we are doing. And at CRRI, we are working on different materials which we, if incorporate in construction, we can reduce the those emissions. What are the technologies which we need to work on even in the equipment sector, whether on-site, off-site, we need to change our fuels. So all those sectors we are working. So the flagship programs I've been asked for. So we are working on like using waste plastics in road construction. We are importing bitumen worth 250 lakh crores every year. It's coming in India for construction. So another flagship program of CRRI is on which I am leading that project. We are working on producing bitumen in India from biomass rather than from fossil fuels. So we are working on that research. At the same point, rather than using the non-renewable resource of aggregate, that is a quarry aggregate, we are working on using slag-based aggregate, which is again a waste material. So all such kinds of technologies which can bring the sustainability, we are working pan-India with the construction agencies, with the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, National Highways. So with all these agencies, we are working on.
Thanks, everyone. Just to wrap the introductory comments, so we kind of walked through the EV dashboard initiative, and Shakti talked about the PM e-bus Seva procurement and what QCI and CRRI are doing in regards to, on behalf of the organization, how they're ensuring sustainability in their products and services. So I'd like to get into the little bit into the nuts and bolts of this topic, as the theme says, like fostering sustainability and accelerating adoption. Specifically, we want these climate instruments to be climate focused, friendly, and resilient. So if I could start with Ampika on behalf of CRI, how does CRI prepare itself to withstand adverse weather events? And because we're talking resilience in the context of roads, how is CRI doing, and how does its future hold for ensuring that our infrastructure is resilient, not just to the wear and tear, but also in a long term, specifically when we talk about these adverse climatic weather events? If you could just share your insights on that, that'll be great.
Okay. Yeah, so very interesting question you asked. So in India, our roads are exposed to three very, you can say that harsh conditions. One is very heavy traffic, very high speed, and then the heavy rainfall, and then the high temperature. Normally, when some technologies are coming from developed nations, they come in to CRRI to approve them to be used in India, and then when they say, that this is being tested in US or somewhere, so I always have a question. Sorry, we have a very, very different climatic condition. Whatever you're saying that I should be approving it on the basis of being used in other countries, you are either facing a very low temperature like snowbound conditions or very high temperature. But in India, specifically, even if I talk about Delhi, my road is exposed to 70 degrees centigrades and to -5 degrees centigrades. So that is only in India that our roads are exposed to this kind of variety of temperatures. So at CRRI, we are doing a lot of research that how we can make our roads withstand this kind of temperature variations. And also at the same time, we are having, as I said, overloading is the biggest problem in India. So overloading along with extreme climatic conditions, we have incorporated and made codes and guidelines. So CRRI is also a part of BIS. I am a member of those committees. So we make out the guidelines and the design of our roads in such a way that we incorporate, during the construction and the material changes, so that it can withstand all that climatic conditions. But at the same time, as I said, our main agenda is always, because we from the government have also been given this task to work towards net zero. So when we are making our roads climate resilient, we are also working on how to reduce this carbon pollution. Like for example, I'll specifically quote one technology, like in any road construction project, my lead distance is 200, approximately 200 kilometers in north. That means I'm transporting my materials for 200 kilometers, which means I'm consuming 180 lakh liters of diesel. That is a fossil fuel we are just consuming. So just imagine the amount of fossil fuel, and at the same time the kind of pollution we are doing. So CRRI developed the technology of pavement recycling, that rather than transporting the material, use the local material and already existing material in the pavement, mill it and reconstruct it, use it, the existing material, to make a new pavement. So which means zero lead distance, I am straight away cutting this 180 lakh liter diesel consumption just to transport my materials. So all these aspects we are working on. As again I said, another one, we have developed a process, that was a project given to us by the Honorable Transport Minister Shri Nitin Gadkari ji, to develop process to make bitumen in-house in India rather than importing. So we have already developed the process, and this month we would be having the first section. We developed bitumen from parali. So with this process, we are solving two problems. One, the parali burning, which is actually creating pollution. And then, yes, of course, once this is adopted at a large scale, we can cut down of bitumen imports. So these are the technologies we work on.
Okay, thanks for highlighting the point. Just a one-line summary can add to it. It's just not important that we cut down on the resources we use to build the roads, make them, say, locally sourced and reduce the amount of diesel and fuel and whatnot you want to build the road. But the kind of vehicles that are also moving on the road, that is also like, we cannot lose sight of that. We don't want that to be a blind spot. That's a good insight. So I like to take this opportunity to pose this particular question. When we're talking about resilience, we always wonder, in the context of mobility, we talk about lifetime and warranty. This product is not of good quality. That's like a kind of a generic statement we used to hear. So I like to hear Sharma ji's thoughts on, like, how is the QCI sort of promoting climate-friendly solutions into not just their products that they are responsible for. How is it helping trickle down the importance of climate-friendliness when it comes to manufacturing quality products?
A lot of efforts from government and all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. Still, there is a myth or wrong perception across the sectors that attaining good quality or sustainability or health and safety standards or environmental protocols, which are the bare minimum requirement, those have a costly impact in the manufacturing facilities or in the production floor. But believe me that that is not the truth. Worldwide, number of surveys, independent surveys are being conducted, which shows that attaining good quality health and safety requirements, government protocols or regulatory protocols in your manufacturing practices may take around 3 to 5% of total revenue. But if we talk about poor quality, poor standards with respect to environment, health and safety and sustainability, the cost may go up to 15 to 35%. So that shows that the cost for attaining good quality, health and safety and sustainability requirements is always less than poor quality or poor compliance of standards. When I say the compliance of standards, globally, entire ecosystem is shifting for sustainable development, which can be used for standards. For example, till now, ISO has published more than 24,000 of standards, out of which 14,000 standards are being mapped as far as SDG 12 is concerned. And as far as climate action, SDG 13 is concerned, 1,500 standards are being mapped according to those requirements. So globally, the focus is shifting for sustainable growth in terms of products, processes, and services. And if optimum utilization of man, machine, and material can be clubbed with the bare minimum regulatory requirements, I suppose standards can be more inclusive in terms of implementation and in terms of final outcomes. So in Quality Council of India, as per the direction of our Honorable Prime Minister, We are also operating one scheme which is called zero effect and zero defect, which means that the produce which are being manufactured in our factories should have zero defect as far as quality is concerned, and should have zero impact as far as their operation or use are concerned. So this philosophy need to be implemented in each area and sector. And as far as this philosophy is concerned, this need to be started within the design phase itself. For example, if we are designing any product or service, we have to see whether we can use as a raw material, whether we can use some recycled material, or whether we can use some material which has got less impact on the environment or zero impact on the environment without compromising on the quality parameters. So these schemes, Quality Council of India is operating, and we have seen a good response in terms of number of registrations. Till date, around 1.9 lakh registration has been done by the MSMEs, and 98,000 certificates have been issued under this JET scheme. Similarly, we are operating other schemes with respect to other management system standards, for example, ISO 14000, which is a standard for environmental management system. ISO 50001, which is a standard for energy management system. So there are certain schemes which are being operated by Quality Council of India. So I would request all the stakeholders, if you want to learn more about those schemes, you can always contact with us. And similarly, some sectorial schemes are being operated. For example, we are operating one program, Corsia, which is applicable only for aviation sector. So different type of programs are being operated in terms of sustainability and environmental concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharma ji. We talked about resilience and quality. So the bottom line is, where does this money come from? We can aspire for higher quality, higher standards, but ultimately it needs continuous and sustained investments, either in the form of innovations, R&D, subsidies, and so on. So no better person than Shubhashish Dev from Shakti. If you could share his insights on how can we mobilize private sector, ensuring the viability of these climate financing mechanisms, and if you can share one or two particular examples of how Shakti and on behalf of Institute, if you can highlight one or two such initiatives that have actually materialized, that'll be great.
Thank you, Shesha. Just before jumping into private sector climate finance, we need to understand more in-depthly how finance flow happens in various geography, as Mr. Kant has already described in his keynote address, that finance availability is not a challenge, but access to finance is often the challenge. Now, in developed economies, most often than not, and it's never cast on stone, the policy discourse follows the initiatives which are taken by the private sector. But in most of the developing economies, including India, is the other way around, where policy directions, or more importantly, cohesive, coherent policy directions give impetus to how the finance flow would happen. I'll take an example here, and since we are talking about electric mobility, we are talking about renewable energy or hydrogen, I'll just take the example of the renewable energy journey which India had, and there we were successful in an extent that currently we have around 180 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel based installed capacity in the country. And at the same time, we were able to, and we are able to mobilize finance in that area. But that journey were directed by certain policy decisions which were taken across decades. And if we start from, say, 2005 onwards and see how the policy has been shaping, which supported renewable energy from a kilowatt-based installation to now gigawatt-based installation. So initially, when it was kilowatt-based installation and we were looking at gigawatt scale, at that point of time, the policy was such that fiscal incentive was provided, mostly in terms of income tax relaxation or depreciation benefit, which incentivized private capital, and most of these were equity capital coming from either individual investors or from institutional investors who helped install, mostly at that point of time, wind projects. So we know of those anecdotal experiences where people who had nothing to do with energy had actually bought wind turbines. And that helped move our renewable energy journey from kilowatt-based installation to megawatt-based installation. And then came 2014 when Indian government announced, or the Honorable Prime Minister announced, that we would like to install around 125 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity. At that point of time, it was few gigawatt. If I remember correctly, it was less than 10 gigawatt at that point of time. Now, for gigawatt-based installation, when we talk about scale, uh, then the incentive had to be different. When we talk about scale, equity will not only suffice, it has to move from the equity-based market to a debt-based market. And at that point of time, the incentives were such that it moved from capacity to efficiency-based incentives. So we had PLI schemes, we had reverse auctioning done by SECI. SECI played a very critical role at that point of time, which gave the institutional investors as well as the banks and funds to provide debt capital to the market. And then we also have seen large-scale independent power producers coming into market, aggregating the existing assets as well as investing in new assets, which move the market from being megawatt-based scale to gigawatt-based scale. So what I meant to say that even if today we are talking about, say, green hydrogen or battery storage technologies and we are looking at gigawatt-based scale, then those incentives or market-related policy nuances have to be designed accordingly to understand whether we are looking at a technology which needs to mature, then equity flow has to happen and the policy direction has to be accordingly. And if you are looking at scaling up for technologies, for example, say battery storage, the technology is already mature enough, we would require scaling up, then those policy direction has to be such that the debt market can be mobilized. We'll stop here and would love to have further discussion as we move forward. Thank you.
Thoughtful insight on the interlinkage between the technology maturity, the size, speed, and the scale of intervention that we seek to deploy on the ground, which would require a sort of a different kinds of approach when we want to, in the context of, let's say, renewables, utility storage, and even for green hydrogen. Interesting insight and very valuable as well. And going from renewables, so we started with roads, we looked at quality, and then we got a macro level picture of the financing. If you want to just going a little deeper into some near and here kind of a thing on the issue of EV sales and penetration, I would like to hear Shapur's thoughts on the issue of, we have these ambitious targets of 30% by 2030. Everybody, or at least most here, are aware of FAME and PLI for ACC and all those things. But broadly speaking, on the issue of financing, what sort of interventions, policy mechanism, whether it's private or public, what are the things that you would recommend that we need to meet this target of 30% by 2030?
So I'd like to answer that question, but first, we at OMI Foundation, we realize, as the saying goes, you can't manage what you can't measure, or for that matter, you can't monitor. In that spirit, the dashboard presents information on the way electric vehicle journey of India is moving, right? And it presents forward-looking vision also in terms of how many vehicles do you expect to come in the market, at what point of time, what are the assumptions backing it, what kind of battery demands will we see, what kind of current infrastructure do we see, what's the policy environment, what is the investment pipeline for that matter, right? And all of that information in one place presents a good set of information for you to take various strategy and policy decisions. Now, there are some realizations that come out of these numbers. As an example, what we realize is that while we are pushing EV sales and EV adoption for that matter, I think the allied infrastructure that is essential for it to see the kind of uptake that we would want, that's that's lacking right now. Whether you think about charging infrastructure, whether you think about backward linkages and supply chain robustness when it comes to battery manufacturing, when it comes to even for that matter, having the kind of capacity for producing batteries in India to meet the kind of aspirations that we have, not just of maybe having 30% penetration, but also for that matter, as the dignitaries in the morning mentioned, manufacturing export hub. So we need all of that to come into India. And towards that end, I think there are a couple of things that we need to have. You mentioned that the room is well familiar with FAME and PLI and others. I think those initiatives are welcomed. There is, I would like to make a small note that the subsidy rationalization or subsidy reduction that's happening is different from what's happening around the world. If you were to say IRA or any other kind of various different geographies, the subsidy push is increasing, and I think India, if we need to have the aspiration and manage the aspirations, achieve the goals that we are setting out for ourselves, we need to continue providing and increasing subsidies so that uptake happens. The manufacturers are incentivized to put in money and come up with new models, increase customer choice, and so on and so forth, as well as set up the kind of infrastructure. The second point that I'd like to raise is around viability gap funding. Right? So financing of EVs is risky, and we have some amount of that already happening in battery energy storage capacities. We need to have similar interventions when it comes to electric vehicle systems at large. Allied with that is risk reduction mechanisms. Shri Amitabh Kant in the morning outlined this, for an instance. These interventions could take various shapes and forms, including state-owned financial institutions and multilateral banks coming together to come up to provide this risk reduction and risk mitigation systems, which could bring down the cost of financing itself. Right, so these are some of the interventions, and I think more is required, more studies required to be able to increase adoption for the consumers, but also have the kind of subsidies or capital incentives for the manufacturers and for the investors themselves to be able to come in India, to have the confidence and to have the commitment in a way to be able to raise the capacity to be able to establish the kind of infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are hitting close to the time. Just in the last few minutes, if I politely request all panel members to, if you could just summarize in few words, like 30 seconds or less, one actionable piece of takeaways that you want the audience and our guests to take away in the spirit of the topic, or fostering sustainability and accelerating adoption. What would be that one takeaway for the audience to be? So I'll start with Apurva.
I would like to echo the sentiment that was there in the morning. India needs India-relevant, India-first and India-specific solutions as against replicating things that have worked in the West. No harm in borrowing and learning from other geographies, but I think we need to have that thinking hat on and think of solutions which are going to be India-first, uniquely suited to India's market and basically usage patterns, which will then enable us to also be the kind of exporter that's needed for the developing world at large, right? So we need to build solutions for ourselves and then figure out a way to be exporters of those solutions for the rest of the world.
Thank you. We got to Shubhashish from Shakti.
Thank you. So the one point which I would like to reflect upon is that we do have a countrywide net zero target, and we are also aware that net zero target is getting reflected into sectoral target. But to make that happen, and I'm again taking the example of renewable energy, which had a sectoral target and still has a sectoral target, which has driven a lot of investment in terms of even the renewable energy companies being able to raise green bonds from global market to the tune of $10 billion plus. That can be replicated in other sector, be electric mobility or storage, if we have sectoral target announced at a national level. So this is something which might be worth contemplating. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharma ji from QCA.
Yeah, I entirely agree with my fellow panelist that India should have a specific approach as far as policies are concerned, as far as bare minimum requirements for standards with respect to quality, health and safety, sustainabilities are concerned. And the approach should be that the solution should be acceptable to all the stakeholders. It should be scalable. It should be technologically feasible. It should be, I would say, acceptable by the political leadership, and it should be judicially tenable. And last but not least, in Indian context, it should be emotionally relatable. So whatever we are thinking in terms of solutions with respect to policy level interventions or with respect to implementation level aspects should follow all these basic principles, then that would be a, I would say, inclusive combination of global best practices and Indian contextual requirement. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as I said in the starting that, our construction sector is the biggest polluter. So, it's approximately 28% of the emissions are coming from construction sector. And if I talk about the technology readiness, we have all the technologies available to reduce these emissions and to achieve net zero targets. But what is required from the government, and I've been working with Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, that how to bring carbon credits, because India as a country, we are either driven by I always say this in my talks, we are driven by either fine or fayda. So we need to give that profit to our construction agencies in terms of carbon credits. Otherwise, the adoption of all these technologies which can allow the reduction in carbon emissions it's very difficult to happen. Another thing which is required is that, construction sector is a very disorganized sector. Sitting in my research laboratory or sitting in ministerial level meetings, I may bring different kind of policies or technologies, but end of the day, the technology would be used by a mason or only a diploma holder at the construction site. So there is always a chance of mistake happening. So we need more and more learned professionals joining this sector, specifically the road construction sector, because when we talk about mobility, roads are the road transportation is the biggest shareholding of that mobility. So we need learned professionals to join this sector so that we can together combat this and bring down the carbon emissions and bring the sustainability here.
Thanks everybody for your time and attention. Thank you.